Welcome to How I Lead, a new series of interviews from Thomson Reuters. In this series, I will speak with leaders of the legal profession in Canada. I will ask them how they've been successful and what best practices they have to share with other leaders. I'm joined today by Carolyn Garsalitz, Vice President of Legal and Business Development at Cameco. Cameco is one of the largest global providers in the world of uranium fuel for nuclear power. The company is also a leading supplier of uranium refining, conversion, and fuel manufacturing services. Cameco is committed to delivering the clean baseload energy to help the world meet its net zero goals. In addition to being one of Canada's largest companies, Cameco has been in the news lately due to its announcement that it plans to partner with Brookfield Renewable Partners and other investors to acquire Westinghouse. Given everything that's going on, I'm especially grateful to Carolyn for taking the time to speak with me. Carolyn has had an illustrious career at Cameco. She has been with the company since 1994 and has helped shepherd the company through some transformational moments, including acquisitions, divestitures, and restructuring of Cameco's joint ventures and international operations. Earlier this year, Carolyn was honored with the King's Counsel designation for her service and contribution to the legal profession in Canada. Also, on a personal note, I just want to mention that my first summer after law school, I was a summer clerk with Cameco and worked with Carolyn directly. I was extremely impressed with the lawyers at Cameco, and so it's an honor for me to have Cameco and Carolyn be the first interview I do with this series. Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you, Steven. It's a true pleasure to talk to you today.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to start by talking about your career and how you've gotten to where you are now. Can you tell us why you decided to practice law and about your early career before moving in-house?
Well, my decision to practice law was driven by the same kind of motivation I think many people I know, and that was because one of my parents was a lawyer. So out of 6 siblings, 4 of us became lawyers. And as growing up in my family and being exposed to my father, who was a lawyer, and his partners and colleagues, I was always impressed with professionalism and how lawyers just made things work. And so I felt it was a noble profession that I would be privileged to be a part of. So before I came to Cameco, I was in a mid-sized firm in Saskatoon. And I worked there in commercial work, mostly commercial work.
That's great. And that was McKercher, correct?
Absolutely, yes, it was.
Great.
Yeah, it
So
was
when
hard
did
to
you
leave. It was. I would just say it was hard to leave. I really enjoyed my colleagues there and my clients. So coming to go in-house was a big decision because I felt like I was leaving all of that, the people that I really enjoyed working with.
When did you decide to make that transition? How did that opportunity arise?
Well, Cameco was a pretty exciting place in Saskatoon. Saskatoon is a mid-sized prairie city, and Cameco does international global work. The work that I did at McKercher, it was exciting and rewarding, but the people that I knew at Cameco got to travel to Central Asia, and that was pretty exciting. So a colleague of mine, he's Sean Quinn, so he's our Senior Vice President, legal and in Saskatoon, our head office. He came to Cameco from McKercher a year before I did. And the things that he was doing and the work that he was exposed to and the places he was traveling with were very exciting. So that was the main decision point to come to Cameco.
Great. Yeah, Sean's a legend in the Saskatchewan legal community. That's great. What are the major differences you see in capabilities required to be a successful lawyer in a law firm versus in-house counsel?
I don't see a lot of differences. I see the same strengths, like when I'm working with people in-house and in external firms, looking for the same strengths. One focus is the different type of work. In-house, you're really focused on your client, one business typically. It depends on who your client is in-house, but you're very focused on a certain business and what its challenges are, what its strengths are, the risks in that business, how you can mitigate them, how you can solve the problems in that business, help solve those problems. Where my experience in external firms and the external lawyers that I work with, you have like a buffet of issues and people and different types of people that you work with. So there's a lot more variety.
Absolutely. So today you lead the legal department at Cameco. What do you attribute your successful career growth to?
Well, the people that I've worked with and the people that I've been exposed to. So coming in-house, I got to work with a lot of very strong people, business, like commercial business people. And so they would, I would work side by side with them. So that was a huge learning experience, basically watching how they work. And so that's the people that I'm exposed to at Cameco and I've been exposed to throughout my career. And then it's the quality of the work that I get to work on, the international global nature of it, the partners, the people that we work with, it's just a scope of an environment that is very, very wide and broad and lots of variety. So you learn from all those different situations and the level of work that you work at, it just keeps increasing as you're exposed to more and more different kinds of things. And the external counsel, I get to work with a huge variety of external counsel in jurisdictions all over the world. So you get exposed to so many different experiences. It just ups your game.
You also lead the business development function at Cameco. Leading M&A seems like it would be a different skill set from being a successful lawyer, and your team leads billion-dollar acquisitions and partnership initiatives. What was the transition to business development like? How did you build your skill set in that role?
It was a natural transition because before I moved to corporate development, I was focused on projects. Like as a lawyer, I was just working on projects. So special projects, transactions, joint ventures. So I was very familiar with the deal-making process. I would say I had to learn to rely on people more, which was good for me as I moved to corporate development, because my background was in philosophy and political science in university. I wasn't a business graduate, so I didn't run financial models when I came into corporate development. So it was a learning curve in terms of relying on the people that you work with other skills. And also an interesting part for me was the balance on risk. As a lawyer, I'm more conservative on risk. As I moved into corporate development, I had to grow a bit in terms of balancing it. I'm not just the lawyer, I'm also the commercial person, and what's the appropriate balance?
Absolutely. You must have a very busy and hectic schedule. What advice would you give to other business and legal leaders about maintaining their energy and mental health while balancing a successful career?
I typically say to people when we talk about this issue and they ask me about it, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I know that's really a cliche, but sometimes you do have to sprint depending on what's going on, but it can't be a continual sprint. So I look at my month, my year in terms of a marathon, and then I focus on how I renew myself because I have a responsibility.
Yeah.
Not a major responsibility I have at in my position is to energize other people, and I can't energize other people if I'm drained. So in order to do that, balance. And balance is about looking after the things for yourself personally that that re-energize you and give you energy. And that's different from everybody, but I enjoy physical exercise. I enjoy my hobbies, hiking, skiing, reading. gardening, and I work those into my life. Sometimes I don't get to do them for a while, but I remember them and I put them back in as soon as I think that it's self-defeating to continue to run a sprint. So for me, balance goes up and down. Sometimes you're hardly ever always equally in balance. Sometimes you're overworking and you're under in your personal pursuits than your hobbies. And then other times it's got to reverse. So balance.
That's great advice. It's something I need to think more about myself. So I'd love to turn to talking about Cameco's law department specifically and how it works. Can you give me a sense for how your law department is structured today and maybe how that structure has changed over time?
Well, when I joined the legal department again, and so maybe I should back up and say
Yeah.
I started my career at Cameco in the legal department. I think it was like 1994. I don't remember. It's been like 25 years. And then in 2006, something like that, I went to corporate development. I rejoined the legal department as VP, covering two portfolios in 2011. So covering corporate development and legal. So when I rejoined in 2011, we were about 13 lawyers and with 20 employees. Now we're 16 employees, 8 are lawyers. So we've streamlined the department more, and it is more specialized. The lawyers are more specialized in the different areas that they work.
That's super helpful. What sort of culture would you say your law department has, and how do you consciously foster that?
So that's a really interesting question. I always find that question really interesting.
Yeah.
We are, the legal department is part of Cameco. So we are part of that culture. And the culture of Cameco is focused on 4 main principles. Act as one Cameco. So everybody is equal, everybody works together, break down silos. That makes it a much more rewarding workplace. We also, a high priority in our culture at Cameco is be safe, be innovative, and be inclusive. So those things are taken for granted in our department. It's part of who Cameco is and part of who the legal department is. In terms of the legal department itself, I think we're very proud about being connected to each other, being there for each other, and that the department in itself is a mentally safe place for people, like a place where people feel like you're supported and you can trust one another. We have a lot of pride in our professionalism. How we act professionally, the product we deliver is very professional and very high quality.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely felt all those attributes when I had the opportunity to work there the one summer. Cameco has a large employee base. How does your law department manage incoming questions from internal business partners?
So it depends on the area in the department. So as I said, the lawyers specialize. Some high volume work areas, such as our marketing department that processes all the contracts with the electrical utilities around the world. That's a high volume department, and people act quickly, very, and it's predictable. That one has a very formal inbox system. It's digital, and it works very well because there's such a high volume of work. The other areas where lawyers are specialized and focused, such as supply chain and things, depending on what's happening in that area, it can turn into a more technical digitized inbox delivery, or it turns into just weekly meetings with the client group where you set priorities and let the lawyers know exactly what they should be expecting coming down the pipe. We would like, this is something we'd like to look at in the future, is looking at digitizing it all, but
Hmm.
I struggle with it. It depends on the client, the nature of the work, and the volume of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. We're about to release a new survey from corporate in-house counsel around Canada, and that's one of the top priorities right now is digitizing the in-house business model. So that definitely resonates. What sort of key metrics are you tracking to assess the effectiveness of your law department?
That's another area that we want to get more developed. I mean, we follow the budget, kind of the budget and strategic planning cycle in the company itself. So in terms of setting our budget annually and being accountable on our budget, we'll set our objectives every year, what our initiatives are, the amount of agreements or transactions we expect to conclude, and then we'll report on that as part of the budget cycle. We also, I mean, we track our spend internally and externally and our budgeting on that and report on that. We track how many agreements, documents, projects, and report on that. But it's pretty manual. That's another area that we would like to look at getting more, getting it more streamlined, more digitizing it.
Yeah. I'd like to dig into the use of outside counsel for a minute. So you operate globally. How do you go about selecting outside counsel to use in all the different markets that you operate in? What are some of the key attributes you look for in selecting outside counsel?
Well, reputation's number one. Like, we only deal with firms that have the highest of reputation, and we deal in different jurisdictions all over the world. So in North America, you can take that for granted, but reputation is number one. Then number two would be degree of experience. Life is so much easier when you're dealing with someone that has done it before, many times before. And it also is so much easier when the other side has counsel like that too. So experience, reputation are the top. Then responsiveness and communication skills. Yeah, our ability to talk to them and for them to listen to us and understand us is important.
How do you measure the effectiveness of outside counsel?
Well, their ability to communicate with us. I mean, when we get, I can recognize a well-drafted, concise document that's speaking to the issues that are important, and our ability to talk to them and them to talk to us. When we're asking for a legal opinion, how concise is it? How to the point is it? How practical is it? And those are probably the major ones. I also very much appreciate, I ask for a budget up front and a scope of work. I very much appreciate when the results somewhat matches it and updates in terms of things that change, because we all know things do change.
And what does your panel of law firms look like? How large is it?
We have approximately 25 law firms working for us on a continual basis around the world. 14 of them are Canadian firms. Again, we pick and we continue to use firms based on expertise. Like, we don't pick just one firm and just use them. It really depends on the expertise of the firm. So we'll have a number of different Canadian firms that we're working with depending on the subject matter.
So a question that a lot of outside counsel care about, what would make you stop using a particular outside counsel? Can you talk about what sort of feedback loop there is when a law firm is not meeting your expectations?
You know, it's usually not the law firm. It's usually a particular lawyer. I mean, frankly, if a particular lawyer isn't meeting our expectations, we don't ask them for anything again. Like, we just don't, we don't use them. And sometimes you do have to give feedback to the managing partner, for the relationship that something's not working. But it's
Fair.
usually, in my experience, it's not the firm. It's something's not working with a particular lawyer.
Fair. I want to dig in on partnerships. One unique element of Cameco's success over the years has been partnerships and joint ventures. Your team creates the legal framework to joint venture in exploration and mining and refining projects with companies all around the world. What are some of your best practices in developing a successful legal framework that works for both parties?
So that is one of the wonderful things about working at Cameco. We have wonderful partnerships, and it is truly fulfilling to work with other companies all around the world. And I think like we really enjoy the relationships. So you have to understand what's important to your partner and be fair in terms of what's going to work for both sides, because if you want that partnership to continue, and in the nuclear world, I think it's a very long horizon in terms of projects and patience. And so the deal that you create has to work for both sides for it to last. So it's important to know what's important to them, and it's important that you communicate to them what's important to you, and that healthy respect and give and take there. Trust, creating trust between the people that are working together is very important. And the governance practices are that legal is responsible for putting in place, kind of like the rules of the game. Usually you never have to go to those rules because commercially the deal's working for both sides, and there's trust and personal relationships. So those rules are usually in the background and they're never really looked at. To me, that's a really successful partnership.
How has technology changed or not the way your law department operates in the past decade?
So we've moved from a network file share to an on-premises version of SharePoint, and we're trying to fit in, and we've also moved to Microsoft Office 365 in the last few years, and we're moving to SharePoint Online. The legal department is struggling because we're trying to fit into the overall Cameco digitization environment, and we're trying to make it to meld it together. We are struggling because we lawyers do things. I know everybody says this, but we do things differently, than other departments. So we want to explore more different digital solutions for the department. And because we're in a transition phase in the company right now, we're still struggling with it. We're interested in a mine management system. So that's something we're going to be exploring.
Oh, that's great. Well, Caroline, I'd like to shift to our last section on talent, because Cameco has fostered a fantastic culture of talent in the law department. First of all, let me just ask, what's the pitch? Why should a lawyer think about coming to work at Cameco's law department?
Well, again, I think it's what originally attracted
Aside
me.
from you and Larry.
Yeah, well, what originally attracted me like 25 years ago, it's the scope of international transactional work. Like, I still love it. I still find it absolutely amazing that I get to work on agreements in Europe and China and India, Kazakhstan, Australia, all over the United States. It's fascinating. And you get to work with people, like you might go to, for example, Kazakhstan as a tourist, but you don't get to actually work with people. People do go to Kazakhstan. They have gorgeous mountains.
I would love to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Astana is an amazing city.
Yeah,
But
that's very cool.
you get to actually work with the professionals in those different cultures. And you get to work with the experts and consultants in those different cultures. So it's a really huge learning opportunity and really enriching.
Yeah.
So the nature of the work that we get to do is amazing. Also in terms of learning just as a lawyer, the exposure to the different types of external counsel, it's a huge growth opportunity. The lawyers that I have learned from in my career, in Kazakhstan, in New York, in London, in Regina, like I just get exposed to so many different types of external counsel with different experiences, and every time you work with them, you learn something. So that is the nature of the work and the people that you work with. And then on a more macro level, though, and I take this for granted, Cameco is energizing the world. You know, in the current situation with respect to a real focus on carbon-free energy, like that's what we do, and always very much appreciated it. It's always been inspirational, but it's being recognized more and more right now. So that's super rewarding too.
And on the flip side, what are the characteristics you look for when evaluating a potential candidate for a job in your law department?
Well, experience again is always important. What kind of experience do they have? But we like growing people. So a young lawyer is perfect now. We have a few of them right now. I find clear, concise, analytical communication and writing skills are very, very important, and interpersonal skills. So communication, clear conciseness, and ability to just work with different kinds of people and be open to work with different types of people. And yeah.
Over the years, Cameco has promoted lawyers into senior leaders in other departments. The company's past two CEOs, I believe, have both been lawyers. What is it about the practice of law that has set up Cameco's leaders for success?
Well, I just take for granted how wonderful lawyers are, but leadership skills, I think, are naturally developed in lawyers. You know, we're problem solvers. We want to make things better, and we bring people together to solve problems, to find solutions to things. Lawyers are analytical, typically, strategic, and practical. Successful lawyers are often very practical, and we're good communicators. So those are all skills. When you put them all together, it gives you a CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. So Caroline, at this point in your career, what do you enjoy most about your work? What motivates you to come into work every day?
Well, again, energizing the world with carbon-free energy is like a legacy. Like when Cameco is successful in that, it has repercussions, like global repercussions. So that's wonderful. I still very much enjoy the international aspects of the work and working with other cultures. And one thing as I've grown older, and is I'm now really enjoying working with younger lawyers and hopefully passing on to them some of the things that I learned from the executives and senior leaders at Cameco when I was a young lawyer. And that's actually a lot of fun.
Well, Caroline, I know you're extremely busy, so I just have one more question for you as we wrap here. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone graduating from law school now who wants to pursue a successful in-house career in the future?
Well, it depends on what industry. Like it really does depend on what industry you're going into. But when I am looking at young lawyers and young people, developing your judgment, because that's what people basically buy from us is our judgment. Developing your judgment is really important, and judgment gets developed through experience. So the more experiences, the more exposure you have to different situations, the faster your judgment, the broader your judgment. So more experiences. It depends on the industry, but before you go in-house collecting experience in a firm or in a wide variety of industries, I think just makes you more valuable, and I think it makes it easier for you to like find your place in an in-house position.
Absolutely. Well, Carolyn, I really appreciate your time today. This has been a lot of fun. It's been great to learn more about you, your esteemed career, the law department at Cameco and Cameco in general. It's a very exciting law department with some fantastic people that I've enjoyed getting to know over the years, and wish you all the best in the future here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was fun.